Imagine this. The phone rings. But it's not a friend calling, not a telemarketer, it's a scream. Or maybe frantic whispers, maybe just this heavy, heavy silence. It's the sound of someone struggling to breathe or that awful quiet after a crash. This is the world of the 911 dispatcher, the unseen, unheard front line. They're dropped right into someone's worst day, every single day.
They really are. Often the very first voice someone hears in a crisis. That first responder, they're that critical link. Getting the info right, staying calm, sending the right help. It impacts everyone's safety. The caller, the responders heading into danger.
And the thing that makes their job so incredibly tough, so unique, is they're doing it totally blind.
Exactly. Yeah. Completely blind. No visual cues, no body language, no expressions, nothing about the scene.
Yeah.
Just the voice. Is it trembling? Is it urgent? Is it flat with despair? That's all they have. It's a kind of sensory deprivation most responders just don't experience.
Right. And just hearing it all, the raw audio feed, a parent finding their child, someone trying CPR while a life slips away, the sounds of a home invasion happening right then. It's not like hearing a story later. They're in it through the phone. That's got to build up.
Oh, it absolutely does. We're talking serious stuff here. Cumulative stress, compassion fatigue, what we call secondary trauma, just from bearing witness to so much suffering day in, day out. And if that's not managed, if they don't have the right tools, well, it can wear them down. Empathy erodes, frustration creeps in, and, the quality of help can suffer.
So the big question is, how do we help them? How do these invisible heroes handle these intense, emotionally loaded calls day after day, and also protect themselves? How to make them even better at what they do?
That's the core issue, isn't it? Equipping them for what's basically a psychological firefight fought entirely with words. And that's where something really quite groundbreaking comes in. It's called the D.I.A.L matrix.
D.I.A.L matrix, okay. Is this like just a new set of procedures? No. Or is it something fundamentally different?
Oh, it's way more than just procedures. It's a specialized communication framework. It's built on some pretty advanced psychological science, specifically designed for the unique pressures of emergency dispatch. The goal here is huge. Transform how crisis calls go, really boost caller cooperation, and ultimately make things safer for everyone involved. Callers, responders, the public. It's a potential game changer.
Okay, advanced science, you mentioned that. What's the engine driving D.I.A.L?
It's grounded in something called relational frame theory, RFT for short. If you've listened to us before, we sometimes get into the weeds with this stuff because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of those times.
Relational frame theory, RFT. Okay, I'm intrigued. So this deep dive, we're really going to unpack how RFT underpins D.I.L, making it this potentially revolutionary thing. But hang on, before the science bit, let's give credit where it's due. You said D.I.L is adapted from something else.
That's right. It's an adaptation of the STARS matrix, which was developed by Dr. Stephen Gonzalez. And crucially, it incorporates guidance, really indispensable guidance, from a guy named Juan Acevedo. Their combined expertise is really what makes D.I.L work so well in the real world.
Got it. Dr. Gonzalez and Juan Acevedo, we'll definitely talk more about them. So consider this your shortcut, everyone, to understanding this potentially transformative approach.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, so that foundation you mentioned, relational frame theory, RFT. Break it down for us. What is it, in simple terms?
Okay, simply put, RFT is basically the science of how our minds work with language, how we connect ideas, words, symbols. But here's the kicker. These connections aren't just about objective facts like a dictionary. They're deeply shaped by our own history, our experiences, our feelings, even our culture.
So a word isn't just a word. It drags along all this invisible personal meaning.
Precisely, and that's huge EE in a crisis. Because the core idea from RFT here is that language doesn't just describe reality for someone in that moment. It can actually create their reality.
Yeah. Whoa, hold on. Creates reality, not just describes it. That sounds big. Explain that.
Think about a traffic light. Green means go, right?
Yeah.
Simple. But if you're driving an ambulance, lights flashing, that same green light's function changes. It means go, but be damn careful. The light itself didn't change, but its meaning, how you relate to it, transforms based on the context.
Okay, I get that. The objective thing is the same, but what it means to you, how you react, that's different based on the situation.
Exactly. Now, picture that crisis call. A dispatcher says, totally neutrally, an officer is responding. For some callers, maybe because of bad past experiences or fear or whatever, that phrase immediately transforms. Officer might trigger feelings of threat, arrest, losing control. The word's function flips from help is coming to maybe danger is coming in their mind. RFT calls this function transformation.
Function transformation. Okay, so the dispatcher isn't just passing information. They need to understand and maybe even try to shift how the caller is hearing and reacting to those words.
That's the core of it. And D.I.A.L trains dispatchers to listen for specific ways. Callers link ideas. These are the relational frames. There are four main patterns they look for.
Four patterns. Okay, lay them out for us. What's the first one?
First up are coordination frames. This is basically when someone equates two things as being the same, even when they aren't, objectively. You hear things like, the police always do X, or you people never listen. They're coordinating police with threat or emergency services with failure. It's a rigid link for them.
Right, like X equals Y, no exceptions. Got it. What's next?
Then you've got opposition frames. This is that classic either thinking, super rigid. Either you do exactly what I say or you're useless. Or it's either this way or no way. There's no gray area, no third option. It makes collaboration almost impossible.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly difficult to work with. Okay, what else?
Third are temporal frames. This is when the past dictates everything. Like past negative events are seen as proof that the present and future must also be negative. You hear, this always happens to me, or things never get better. They're sort of verbally stuck in time, using past pain to build this inescapable, gloomy future.
Wow, trapped by their own narrative about time. Okay, and the last one.
Last one is hierarchical frames. This is about ranking, usually putting themselves or their problems down. Things like, I'm worthless, I don't deserve help, or my problems aren't important compared to others. It shows this sense of low self-value or feeling insignificant.
Coordination, opposition, temporal, hierarchical. And just spotting these isn't the whole story, is it? It actually changes how the dispatcher responds.
Fundamentally, yeah. It moves them from just reacting word for word to strategically engaging with the underlying pattern the caller is trapped in. Spotting the frame is step one in helping them find a different way to see things, a way out of that verbal box.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, you mentioned Dr. Stephen Gonzalez and the STARS matrix before D.I.A.L. Tell us about that origin story.
Right. Dr. Gonzalez, he's a major figure in this area, really an expert in crisis negotiation, behavioral science, applying RFT in law enforcement. We're talking 25 years of deep experience. He developed the STARS matrix first. It came out of solid RFT research mixed with tons of real-world work, especially with high-stakes situations like hostage negotiations.
STARS. What does that stand for? It sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is. STRS is. S, start with connection. T, take their perspective. A, alternatives exist. R, relate through examples. And S, steps to safety. Each piece is designed to build safety, make thinking more flexible, dial down the emotional heat, and get people working together.
You can really see the psychology baked into that. Start with connection, take their perspective. That sounds like RFT principles right there.
Absolutely. Start with connection. It's about setting that positive context. Take their perspective is pure RFT, understanding their unique world, their here and now, their me versus you, getting inside their subjective reality.
So if STRS is so powerful, why create D.I.A.L specifically for dispatchers? Why the need for adaptation?
Because the dispatcher's world is just different,
Right.
radically different. Think about it. A negotiator on scene sees the person, the environment. They have visual feedback. A dispatcher, just the voice, often panicked, distorted. They're trying to build a mental picture, manage chaos, coordinate help, all through sound alone. That isolation, that lack of visual data, means their language tools have to be incredibly sharp, super effective, and usable right now without messing up existing emergency protocols. D.I.A.L refines STRS for that specific auditory-only, high-pressure environment.
And this is where Juan Acevedo's contribution was so vital, you said.
Absolutely indispensable. Juan Acevedo brought the ground truth. Dr. Gonzalez had the science and negotiation expertise, but Juan provided that deep, practical dispatcher perspective. He started way back in '98, has 22 years working 911 communications, police, fire, EMS across multiple agencies in Lake County, Illinois. He knew the flow, the pressures, the specific kinds of calls, the real-world challenges dispatchers face minute to minute. His guidance was critical in making sure D.I.A.L wasn't just theoretically sound, but actually practical, intuitive, and something a dispatcher could realistically use mid-call. He ensured it fit their reality.
That blend of deep science and street-level experience sounds pertinent. Okay, let's break down D.I.A.L itself then. 4 letters. Let's start with D.
Right. D is for de-escalate through initial contact. And this is maybe the first really noticeable shift D.I.A.L introduces.
How so? I mean, isn't the standard 911, what's your emergency?
It is. And it's efficient for getting facts. But it can sometimes feel a bit transactional, like state your problem. It sets a procedural tone. D.I.A.L encourages flipping that script, focusing on connection right away, building trust. So maybe instead it's something like, this is dispatcher's name with emergency services. I'm here to help you through this situation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that lands totally differently. Help you through this. It sounds like partnership, support.
Exactly. It immediately frames it as collaborative. We're in this together. And the dispatcher's voice is key here too. That calm confidence, the measured pace, warmth. It acts like a nonverbal cue almost. It helps shift the dispatcher's authority from something potentially intimidating into a source of reliable support.
I can just imagine the impact on someone terrified hearing that calm, I'm here with you, versus just the standard procedural opening.
It's huge. It sets a completely different tone. And the language follows that. So instead of barking, you need to calm down, which, let's be honest, never works.
No, never. Makes it worse, usually.
Right. D.I.A.L suggests things like, let's work together to figure out how to get you the help you need. Or instead of, you have to listen to me, maybe, okay, we can sort this out together just step by step. It's about building that immediate connection, making the interaction feel safe and cooperative, especially if the caller might already feel defensive or mistrustful.
Building that trust from word one makes sense. Okay, that's D-U-B-E. What about I?
I stands for identify relational frames and information. This is where it gets really clever. It's a dual process. You're still gathering the essential info, what's happening, where, who's involved, but at the same time, you're actively listening for those underlying relational frame patterns we talked about, the coordination, opposition, etc.
So the way you ask questions probably changes quite a bit.
It really does. Questions become more frame aware, let's say. So instead of a very direct, maybe confronting question like, are you going to hurt yourself? Which can shut people down. A D.I.A.L approach might sound more like, I'm really concerned for your safety right now. Can you help me understand a bit about what's going through your mind?
Ah, much more inviting, less accusatory. It opens the door instead of potentially slamming it shut.
Exactly. Or even for location, instead of just, where are you?
Yeah.
Maybe, help me understand exactly where you are so we can get the right people to you quickly. It weaves in the why and the collaborative we.
And when they do identify a frame, like that coordination frame, you guys are all the same, what then?
Then they use targeted responses.
Yeah.
For coordination, the strategy is often to validate the feeling behind it, but gently introduce a distinction. Something like, I hear that you've had some really frustrating experiences before, and that sounds tough. My focus right now is making sure this interaction is helpful for you. You acknowledge their past pain, but nudge against the always the same generalization.
Okay. And for that rigid opposition frame, the either trap.
The goal there is often to gently introduce a third possibility, to create a little flexibility. Maybe I hear that option A feels like the only way, but I'm wondering if there might be a way, maybe option C, that could address your immediate need and also help us make sure everyone stays safe. You're trying to broaden their perspective, not get stuck in their dichotomy.
Oh, sneaky. I like it. What about the temporal frames? Things will never change.
Yeah. For those, you work on temporal flexibility. If someone feels hopeless, maybe you gently stretch the time frame. I know these feelings feel prominent right now, incredibly intense, but feelings do shift. Moments pass. Things change. Or if someone's overwhelmed by chaos now, you shrink the focus. Okay, let's just focus on the next 5 minutes. Right here, right now. What's one small thing we can do together in this very moment? Ground them in the present.
Right. Bring it back to the manageable now and hierarchical. I'm worthless.
There, you might try to gently separate the person from the feeling or the judgment. It sounds like you're feeling really worthless right now, and that must be incredibly painful. That feeling is real and valid, but it's different from who you are as a person. Help create a little distance from that self-attack.
It's almost like being a verbal Aikido master, gently redirecting the energy of their own words. Which leads us perfectly to A, adjust language to transform functions. This is the active intervention part, right?
Exactly. This is where the dispatcher actively uses language to try and shift how the caller is experiencing the situation, changing the function of keywords or concepts for them, like using hierarchical framing strategically. Maybe saying, okay, right now, the absolute most important thing is your safety. Taking that step to get safe, even if it feels hard, that's priority number one. You're explicitly ranking safety highest.
And that temporal reframing we touched on, stretching or shrinking time?
Yes, exactly. For someone lost in future worries or past regrets, you bring them to the immediate next step. Let's just focus on getting through the next 10 minutes safely, one step at a time. For someone feeling stuck in despair, you might gently point towards future change. This intensity you feel now, it won't last forever at this level. We just need to get through this difficult patch.
Are there other specific techniques here, like helping them step back from thoughts?
Yeah, that's called diffusion, using language to create a little space between the person and their thoughts or feelings. So instead of agreeing this is hopeless, you might say, I notice you're having the thought that this is hopeless. Or it sounds like some really intense feelings of anger are showing up for you right now.
Yeah.
See the difference? It acknowledges the thought or feeling without buying into it as the absolute truth. Gives them a bit of perspective.
That's subtle but powerful. Can you give us this concrete examples again, transforming how someone sees, say, the police or the hospital?
Sure. So if the caller's frame is police threat, the dispatcher works to transform that function to police specialized help. They might say, the officers who are coming, they have specific training for helping people going through really tough times, just like this. Their main goal is to support you and make sure you're okay.
Okay, yeah, that paints a very different picture.
Or if hospital triggers feelings of being trapped, like hospital prison, you reframe it as hospital recovery resource. That team at the hospital, they're experts at helping people feel less overwhelmed. They can offer support and tools to help you get back on your feet and feel more stable. And a really key one is transforming asking for help of weakness into help-seeking strength.
How do they manage that one?
By explicitly saying it. Reaching out like this when you're feeling overwhelmed, that takes real courage. Making this call is actually a sign of strength, of wanting things to be different. And a crucial skill underlying all of this is strategic validation without agreement.
Right. If someone says something that sounds distorted or maybe not entirely accurate, you don't argue, but you don't just agree either. You validate the emotion underneath.
Precisely. Caller says, nobody cares about me. You don't say, yes, nobody cares, or that's not true. You validate the feeling. Wow, it sounds like you're feeling incredibly alone and unseen right now, and that must be really painful. Acknowledge the hurt, not necessarily the factual claim. It builds connection without reinforcing potentially unhelpful beliefs.
D.I.A. Okay. What's the final piece? L.
L is for link to resources and long-term perspective. This is about connecting the caller to the next steps, whether that's immediate field response or other support, but doing it in a way that actually lands for them.
How do you make that connection effective, not just rattling off numbers?
One key way is linking the resources to the caller's values. Things they've mentioned are important to them. If they've talked about their kids, you might frame counseling as, this service helps people build skills to be the kind of parent they really want to be. Connect the resource to their goals, their world.
Making it personally relevant. And this is also crucial for the handoff to the responders arriving on scene, right? Keeping that positive momentum going.
Absolutely critical. You're setting the stage for that face-to-face contact, framing the police, EMS, whoever is coming as continuing the help. Okay, the paramedics are on their way, they know we've been talking, and they're coming to check on you and continue the support we've started here.
So you're actively working to prevent that negative function transformation when the doorbell rings or the siren gets closer. You're pre-framing the responders positively.
Exactly. Maybe saying, they understand that people in crisis need support, not judgment. Their goal is the same as mine, to help you. And reinforcing the connection. I'm going to stay on the line with you until they get right there so you're not alone. It creates a psychological bridge to the next phase of help.
And keeps reinforcing that collaborative feel.
Totally. When they arise, just remember, you're all working together for the same outcome, getting you safe and supported. This even carries through to the dispatcher's notes for the responders mentioning the frames they noticed, what language seemed to help, any triggers. It's about continuity of care, informed by this psychological understanding.
Wow. When you lay it all out like that, D.I.A.L, built on RFT, guided by that real-world expertise. It really does sound like a game changer for dispatchers.
I think it is. You look at what dispatchers themselves say are the hardest parts of the job, the caller's emotions, trying to figure out what's happening without seeing it. D.I.A.L gives them specific, practical strategies for exactly those invisible challenges. It's not just theory, it's applied skill.
And it must help with burnout, too, giving them a sense of control, of agency.
That's a massive piece of it. Dispatchers often ask for more training, better tools to cope with the sheer emotional weight of the job. D.I.A.L provides that structure. And knowing you can effectively de-escalate, that you have ways to gently shift perspective, to connect, that combats the feeling of helplessness, that fuels burnout. It empowers them.
It moves them beyond just being an information relay, doesn't it? It gives them psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt their approach based on the caller's unique situation instead of just sticking to one rigid script. They become active, strategic players in resolving the crisis.
Yeah, I read an account of a dispatcher using D.I.A.L with someone really stuck in that oppositional my way or the highway thinking, getting more and more agitated. Instead of pushing back, the dispatcher used these principles to gently offer a third option, something the caller hadn't considered. It wasn't forceful, it was just a shift in language, but it broke the deadlock, de-escalated everything, and led to a safe resolution. That's the potential here, changing the trajectory of these critical moments.
So, summing it all up, the DIAL matrix, with its roots in relational frame theory and shaped by people like Dr. Gonzalez and Juan Acevedo, it's not just another technique.
No, it really feels like a fundamental shift, a potential revolution in how emergency dispatchers approach crisis calls. It's about empowering them to use language strategically to build cooperation out of conflict, to connect people with help effectively, turning those moments of fear into potential turning points.
A sophisticated toolkit for what has to be one of the most demanding jobs out there. So here's something to leave you, our listener, thinking about. If tweaking just a few words or understanding the hidden frame someone's stuck in can make such a massive difference in their worst moment, what does that tell us about the power of language in our own everyday lives? How might paying a bit more attention to the frames we use or the ones others present to us change how effectively and compassionately we communicate day in and day out? Something to mull over.